When you ask AI a question on your phone, where does the answer actually come from? Here's the surprising part. It doesn't come from your phone at all. It comes from a building. A building the size of a shopping mall packed wall to wall with computers that needs its own power plant just to run. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how these buildings work, who builds them, who's making a fortune, what they're doing to the planet, and the honestly insane plans for what's to come next. No tech background needed. By the end of this video, you'll understand this better than almost anyone you know. So let's go. These buildings are called data centers, and the easiest way to understand one is to think of it like the world's biggest kitchen. Your question is the order. Thousands of computers inside are the cooks, and they all work together to cook your answer, usually in about 1 second. Imagine a stadium filled with 100,000 people, all doing math at the same exact moment in perfect sync. That's the kind of horsepower it takes to answer you that fast. And to pull it off, one of the buildings just needs 3 things: powerful computers, a huge amount of electricity, and a way to stay cool. Everything else just feeds into those 3 needs. The chip maker. At the center of everything is a company called NVIDIA. They make the special supercomputer chips that do all the AI thinking. Almost every AI building on Earth runs on their chips, which is why NVIDIA has become the most valuable company in the world. The catch? Just one of their best chips can cost as much as a new car. And there aren't enough to go around, so even with billions of dollars, companies have to wait in line just to get them. The landlords. Most companies can't afford to build these giant buildings themselves, so they rent space from 3 big landlords: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. These 3 own huge amount of data centers and rent out the computing power by the hour. The good news? Anyone can tap into a supercomputer instantly. The downside? A huge chunk of the entire internet now depends on just 3 companies. If they go down, a lot goes down with them. The AI makers. These are companies that have actually built the AI themselves. Names you've heard, like OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, plus Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram. They're like the tenants renting all that computer power to build and run their AI. The support crew. And behind them are companies that build the guts of the building, the racks of computers, the cooling system, and the power setup. Plus the electric companies who quietly become the most important players of all. Because without electricity, none of this works. Building one of these is less like setting up a computer and more like building a small town. It takes 2 to 4 years. The first thing you need to do is pick your location. You need 3 things: cheap electricity, plenty of water or cool air, and super fast internet cables running nearby. That's why these buildings tend to cluster in a few specific places. Next comes power, and this is the hard part. One big AI building can use as much electricity as a city of nearly 1 million people. In fact, a project being built by Facebook's owner in Louisiana will eventually need as much power as 3 of the cities around it combined. So companies have to strike deals with electric utilities years ahead of time. Then you build the inside, row after row of computers, thick power cables, and cooling everywhere. Remember, all those computers together run as hot as 1,000 ovens in a room. The newest ones run so hot that fans aren't enough anymore. So companies now run cold liquid directly across the chips to keep them from melting down. And finally, the backups. Backup generators, backup batteries, backup internet. These buildings are designed to never, ever shut off. Now, the hard part, because all this comes at a real cost. Electricity. These buildings already use a big slice of the world's power, and AI is making that number climb fast. In the United States, data centers use around 4% of the electricity in the company. A lot of that still comes from burning gas and coal, which pollutes the air. Next is water. To stay cool, many of these buildings use real water, the same clean water we drink, and a lot of it. One big building can use as much water in a single day as 1,000 homes. Often that happens in dry areas that can least afford to lose it. Next are the neighbors. For people living nearby, this shows up in real ways: higher electricity bills, the constant hum of cooling fans, and less water to go around. That's why a lot of towns are starting to push back. Governments are scrambling to keep up. New rules are showing up in 3 areas: how much power and water these buildings are allowed to use, and how AI itself is allowed to be used. Europe has been the fastest to write these rules. In the US, it's still a messy patchwork that changes from state to state. And the money? It's staggering. Building and running these AI buildings is already a business worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and one respected estimate says it could reach over $1 trillion by 2027. There's money at every step: making the chips, renting out the computers, constructing the buildings, and selling the power. This is one of the biggest building booms in human history, right up there with the railroads or electricity itself. So what's slowing everything down? There's 4 big roadblocks: Power is the number one problem. There simply isn't enough electricity to go around. Chips are still expensive and hard to get. Water and cooling limit where you can even build. And finally, local pushback and permits can hold up a project for years. Right now, companies can design these buildings faster than the world can actually power them. Here's where it gets exciting, because the solutions sound a little science fiction, except they're already happening. New power. To get enough electricity, Microsoft made a deal to switch a shut-down nuclear plant back on, an old famous one that had an accident a couple decades ago called 3 Mile Island, just to feed its AI. Google and Amazon are going even further, building their own mini nuclear reactors from scratch. Better cooling is coming too. Instead of wasting water, some buildings now dunk their computers in a special liquid that cools them without evaporating away, saving water and power. Next, smarter chips. And every new batch of chips does more thinking while using electricity, so we get more AI for the same power. And finally, and the wildest idea of all, space. In late 2025, a company backed by NVIDIA actually launched a computer chip into orbit and ran AI on it, up in space. Why space? The sun shines nonstop there for free power, and space is freezing cold, so the computers cool themselves for free. Google is planning to test its own version in a couple of years. It sounds crazy, but so did the smartphone ones. So the next time AI answers your question in a blink of an eye, remember the invisible world behind it. The giant buildings, the power plants, the rivers are cooling water, and the companies racing to build the future faster than we can power. It's not magic. It's the biggest machine humanity has ever built, and now you actually understand it.